In the beginning, you had the traditional family, which had the father. The father was the rock. He was the bread bringer. Everyone relied on the father to bring money into the household. And they also relied on the father for security. The Huns are invading. Father, get the sword. Stop the Huns. They want to do bad things to mother and they want to take our stuff. Now, the father was also thinking that he is going to grow old and he will not be able to continue his activities as the father. So what did the father do? He had children. So that when the father is old, the children will then take care of him as he took care of them. So that was the traditional family. But now people are more forward thinking. We have evolved as a society and we don't need the father. Instead, we have the government. Okay, so now the government is going to give you protection. You don't need weapons. You don't need to defend or protect yourself. In fact, there are countries where self-defense is illegal because the government will protect you, okay? Dial 911, wait for those 30 minutes, and then hopefully, if the cops have money for the gas, they may arrive and they may defend you. Government is there to help. Oh, you're getting old? You don't know what to do? That's okay. The government is going to love you when you're old. When you arrive at the point when you can't work anymore, when you need healthcare, the government provides. Now the government is the father and you need to love him as such. At least that's the ideology, right? The only problem with this ideology is that unlike the father, the government doesn't work for a living. The government does not produce anything, which means that it has to take away resources from other people so that they can redistribute them. And this only works if you have high birth rates. In other words, it works as long as there's more people that the government can take money away from than there's people that the government gives money to. When you have low birth rates, you have a problem. Which is what Elon Musk is saying. Now, do we have low birth rates because people aren't having children now? Or do we have low birth rates because the previous generation had more children than they should have? We don't know. At the end of the day, humanity can't just exponentially grow constantly. There's going to be a mathematical limit to this. Have we reached that limit? I don't know, but what I do know is that this system cannot be sustainable. You cannot have public healthcare, you cannot have public education, public this, public that, welfare, free shit this, free shit that, and at the same time, not have high fertility rates. So, this is a conversation that progressives try their best to avoid. They don't want the moderate to start asking these questions. Because then they start to doubt the government. They start to doubt the father. Which is why they prefer if this conversation is put under the rug and left away for some other time. Now, when you have someone like Elon Musk talk about it, I don't care whether or not Elon Musk legitimately cares about this issue. I don't care whether or not he's pandering to populists. What I do care is that finally the conversation is being discussed. Because then you can have an actual moderate person going to Elon Musk's account and he can see that he keeps bringing more and more issues into the spotlight. And you can see how the far left extremists on Twitter are reacting to these issues. Either by completely hand-waving them, either by attacking Elon Musk because he's bringing them up, but none of them actually tackle the issue. Or when they do tackle them, they fail miserably. Like, for example, they're pushing for this harmful level of misinformation. Honestly, the major reason for that is people can't afford to have kids. And then people are talking about student loans and poverty being the reason why people don't have children. But I would like to ask you a question. Do you think that people were more rich during the medieval times than they are today? I mean, they had more children during the medieval time and they were a lot more poorer. But okay, you know, maybe this is not a good example. Why are the Amish having more children than people have today? In fact, Elon Musk accurately points out that the more rich people are, the fewer kids they have. He is doing his part.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part too.
Because he is the exception. He is one of the few rich people that actually have children. In fact, most of his friends, as he points out, don't have children. So, like, if the billionaires and the millionaires don't have children, then that clearly debunks the idea that, oh my god, well, it's student loans, oh, well, it's this or that. So this is a very uncomfortable topic for the progressives, because here's the thing. A rich person like Elon Musk, if he chooses not to have children, he's not going to suffer from it. Like, he has enough money to last him several lifetimes, so even when he is old, there's still going to be people taking care of him. Even if there's no public health care, there's still going to be people taking care of him because he has the money to pay them to take care of him. But if you talk about, like, a BuzzFeed journalist that's surrounded by cat piss, and, you know, she probably had, like, 5 abortions and shit, who's going to take care of her when she's old? The government, right? But what if the government doesn't have money anymore? What if the government is going through a recession? What if there's not enough people paying taxes for the government, and now the government is struggling? She's going to have absolutely no family members. She's going to have no relatives. She's going to be stuck in a ditch. I mean, this happened during the Great Depression. It has happened throughout other periods of people's lives. It's something that most people can't even fathom, that the government may at one point not give welfare for people. Because it literally doesn't have the money to do so. Like, it's just, it's not that the people in power don't want it, it's just that there's no available. It's like opening the refrigerator and there's nothing. You want to have food, you want to give food, but it's like the fridge is empty. What do you do, right? So, this is the conversation that people have to answer. Now, of course, the politicians, they think they have a solution for this, which is to bring immigrants, right? So, in other words, it's colonialism. Like, you target weaker, poorer nations, and you bring the people there, you bring them in so that they become your pay piggies. In Europe, this didn't work very well because they tried to promote this during the, oh my god, this is the migration crisis. Oh, like people are migrating from all over the world, they're migrating into Europe. And what they found out is that many people didn't integrate due to cultural differences. Other people didn't try to find jobs because the way they attract them to Europe was like, oh, you come to Europe, you get free shit. Okay, so more people were now straining the welfare system. Some of them didn't integrate, some of them didn't get jobs. They added to the already problem with the aging populations. So that is one of the solutions that politicians came up with. It's like, okay, we're heading towards a crisis during 30 years. Let's bring people from somewhere else. Because at the end of the day, the nation state isn't about a culture, a family, or no. That's far-right nationalism. The nation state is just a place where economic transactions happen. So let's treat the country like a business. What do you do when a business doesn't have enough employees? Oh, we bring more. Okay, so that is the one way of handling it. The second way was the way Japan was handling it. And Japan was like, we're going to weather the storm. The previous generation had more children than the ones that is now, so we're just not going to do anything. It's going to be a really rough economic time, but hopefully things are going to get better. Apparently it's getting really bad in Japan, so this generation is definitely going to suffer a lot from this strategy. But it's what they're planning to do. It's another option. The third option was what Hungary did. Now, Hungary promoted birth rates. Married people with children get tax cuts. Married people with children get an easier time finding a loan from the bank to buy their first house. And with this, it does seem that it worked, much to the dismay of Sweden. Like, Sweden actually summoned the Hungarian ambassador to answer for the crimes of Hungary, of promoting high birth rates and not adopting the Swedish model, which is like, open your borders, let the poor people in, so we can take advantage of other nations. I'm telling you this, like, what the worst thing about opening the borders is what happens to the nations that you take people away from. Because in Romania, we actually lost people. The problem in Romania wasn't that more people came in, is that almost everyone left. And now when you have health issues, you go to the hospital and you find out that there's no doctors, because they all went to Germany, France, England. We have no agriculture, because they all went to Germany, France, England. We have no teachers, because they're going to Germany, France, England. You know, like, that's the problem here. So you're doing a lot of damage to the nations that didn't have anything to do with this shit. As a matter of fact, Diane Abbott pointed it out. Diane Abbott was the first person that said, oh, look, what the European Union wants to do to Africa, not good. Yeah, not good. But what can you do? This is the progressive forward-thinking ideology where rich nations refuse to have kids, so they take people away, they take the children of other poorer nations as pay piggies to pay into the tax system. It's very progressive, forward-thinking, left-leaning. Now, with that out of the way, it's also interesting to point out that a lot of people are worried about student loan. And this is in a time where a trade profession gives you more financial stability and more possibilities to work than going to university. So, maybe too much education is also a bad thing, right? Like, it seems that the people who aren't very educated are doing fine, but the more educated the person is, the less likely they are to do fine. And they're like, oh my God, I got crippling student debt. Which is very funny. Like, this is the only reason people talk about it is because the television talks about it. Why don't you hear about the people who are worried that they took money from the bank, started the business, and now they can't pay the money back? Why can't they get their loan forgiven? What about the people who took a loan in order to buy a house? Why can't they have their loans forgiven? Why is it just like the university? It's like this targeted demographic, this bizarre targeted demographic, which for some reason, like everyone else who takes a bank loan, they are special. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section, and I'll see you there.